So hi everyone, welcome to the In the Oven podcast by Thumbmuffin Productions. I'm here with Justin Barber from Wild Rose Brewery, and I just wanted to talk through some of your roles as a marketeer and a business person and a salesperson. So I wondered if you could describe your current role. What do you do so people know who you are? I know who you are, but
My name is Justin Barber with Wild Rose Brewery. My current role right now is the district sales manager. Before that I was the director of sales, but with the merger between Wild Rose and Sleeman's, that role has shifted somewhat just recently. So yeah, we've created a new channel that I'll oversee now, and it's technically district sales manager Alberta On-Premise. Okay. So my job right now entails running a team of 7 sales reps in the province of Alberta with a focus on bars, restaurants, hotels.
Cool. Lot to deal with then.
There's a few people to deal with, yeah, and still just kind of going through that integration process between the two companies. So still very much managing the Wild Rose side of the business while integrating kind of both sales teams into one kind of overall company. So it's been a busy couple of months, that's for sure, but it's been a lot of fun to go through.
So how did you get into that role? What took you there?
So my background kind of started in bars and restaurants. I was with the original Joe's group for a little over 7 years. In that time, I was part of the team that developed the house beers. That was through Big Rock. So I got to really know the Big Rock Brewery sales folks and management. From there, as my time was coming to an end at original Joe's, I was looking for something different. Threw my hat in the ring at Big Rock, and I was fortunate enough to get brought over as a sales rep. Mm-hmm. My focus there was bar and restaurant as well, being that was my background. It was a kind of a natural fit. So I did just over 4 years with Big Rock Brewery. Mm-hmm. Our president was Bill McKenzie, who's the president of Wild Rose now. So after he left Big Rock and came to Wild Rose, shortly thereafter I followed suit and joined him over here as sort of a sales manager role, and then over the years kind of worked my way up, hired a new team, obviously built the company. We doubled in size in the 4 and a bit years that I started here, which was great. And then from there became director of sales. So it's been a lot of fun. It's been a crazy roller coaster in the beer world here in Alberta, but yeah, I really enjoy it.
So it sounds like there's been a lot of change throughout your career then. You kind of developed and moved and maybe developed as a person quite a lot in quite a short space of time. And when you're kind of expanding as significantly as Wild Rose have, how have you kind of adapted to that and developed your sales strategies? How have they kind of changed maybe over the years? Have you had to be quite tactful and adaptive to things?
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, when I started at Big Rock Brewery, there was maybe only 4 breweries in the province. So at that time, you kind of had your big players, and then Big Rock was kind of the godfather of craft beer here, or one of the original craft brewers. So we had a good share of the market at that time. So it was a lot of programming and some structure, and you know, working with your other sales reps. As I came over to Wild Rose and we started to grow this company, and then the market of Alberta itself started to grow, you really had to kind of take a step back and challenge yourself to not only be innovative with the products that you're selling to your customers, but in your approach. So that's where we kind of started to make some tweaks, make some changes. Obviously, we don't have the budget of the big guys to just throw Super Bowl trips at you and all kinds of fun stuff. So we had to be a little more creative than that and build some nice custom programs. But our strategy really became customer service first. You know, if nothing else, I always tell my reps, make yourself the hardest rep to ever throw out of the bar. Just because the relationships are so strong, the trust is there. If you say you're going to do something, always deliver on it. Never kind of back out of things. So that's really what changed for us, and as we move forward, to try and really be kind of the best reps we could be for our customers, and see them through, and not only help our business but help grow their business as well. So yeah, it's been challenging at times to become a little more innovative and try and change those tactics up a little, but we have such a great, diverse team here at Wild Rose Breweries. So nobody owns an idea. Everybody's very collaborative. You meet with multiple departments in a day, so it's a big kind of group effort to really adapt and change and be creative in that regard. So we've been very, very fortunate here for sure.
Yeah, and that's relied on the people you've had really. So in terms of when you talk about innovation, how influential do you think you've been on the actual local market and maybe even the national market as a brewer?
Yeah, I would say like our team of brewers that we have, we really have kind of 3 brewmasters. One here at Mark Kerrigan at the tap room, Brian Smith, our director of brewing operations at our production facility, and then Manabu Komoda as well, who's come over from Japan. But overall, our brewing team is super creative and very thorough and very thoughtful. So there's been times where we've kind of led the trend on some brands. When we introduced our Cowbell Kettle Sour, for instance, we were kind of the first, Alberta craft brewery doing a full-time sour. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a super popular brand at the time or style where it is now, but sometimes we've tried to lead that category, and other times we try and get in maybe just in behind 1 or 2 other people. So depending on time of year, brand, and what we have to offer for it, kind of dictates when and what we'll come out with. But yeah, our guys travel a lot. We visit multiple tap rooms, breweries all over the world, and just trying to stay on trend or slightly ahead of it. So it can be challenging, but our guys are forever making new batches of beer at our other facility, our test pilot system that we have over there. So now we started to kind of feature those beers here at the tap room, and with such a great focus group of customers that we have here, it's that's kind of how we develop and hone our skills on what might be the next big beer, or things we're doing right, things we're doing wrong. So yeah, we take all factors into account, and at the end of the day, the customers are the ones that are going to dictate if your beer is going to sell or not, or if it's good or not. So why not get their opinions? So.
Yeah, so in terms of talking about your customers, do you find that you predominantly sell to consumers, or are you focused on getting things, in the bars and let them do your kind of promotion for you? How do you find that balance between having the local kind of word of mouth and getting it pushed at establishments?
Yeah, and I mean, at the end of the day, your end goal is the consumer.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Those are the ones that are going to buy the beer, and you can have all the relationships in the world with a bar owner, and they're happy to bring in your products, but if nobody wants to drink it, then it doesn't do either party any good. So at the end of the day, the consumers who we're really trying to focus on, and creating that demand and some of that brand loyalty. Mm-hmm. It's a little trickier in the craft beer world because people want to try the newest and latest and greatest. Mm-hmm. So you don't have that real strong following that you did back in the old school kind of beer days. But yeah, it's just the community engagement piece and really getting consumers behind your brand and your products, and showing that level of trust and consistency with your products. That helps to drive our customers to make certain decisions, bar owners and such, liquor stores. But it's the consumers that'll kind of drive those sales for you, and they're the ones that are going in and asking for the products. So they're kind of almost helping to get you in the bars and restaurants and liquor stores. And then if you have the relationships with the bar owners, that's when you can really make the impact.
So do you find you have to be more adaptive and change a lot more in terms of your product, or do you still find that your consistent older beers are still selling consistently?
Yeah, for the most part, like we've got 6 core brands. Our lead 2 are Velvet Fog, our Wheat Ale, and the Raspberry Ale. So those are kind of our flagship brands. Those continue to do well year over year. I think in the last 7 years, we haven't seen a decline in growth with either of those brands, which is really impressive. Mm-hmm. Especially with the ever-changing landscape that is beer here in Alberta. So I mean, the 6 core brands have always continued to do well. We will switch up kind of the slow dog, if you will, once in a while. Like we got rid of Cowbell and brought in our High Harvest Hemp IPA. Mm-hmm. That brand has taken off. It's now in the top 4 of those 6, which has been great. So sometimes you got to take a hard look at it, and it's hard to make those decisions sometimes, but again, those consumers are the ones that kind of drive that change. And as long as you're staying innovative and you're loyal to the brand and loyal to what you say you're going to do, and the consumer can trust the beer is always going to be the same quality, level of service, whatever it has. That's been a big part of it for us, and that's what drives a lot of our sales. So.
Moving on to more of like the brewing process, I know it's not really your general forte, but you will know more than I do. When you're kind of putting a beer into an establishment, how involved are you in terms of getting that set up, managing quality control, all that sort of stuff? Are you kind of leaving it to the purchaser basically to do that, or are you quite hands-on to make sure that you've got that level of quality control?
Yeah, I mean, from a brewery standpoint, we've got a quality control team that makes sure the beer is the same always, all the way through from grain to glass. So that's their main focus and role. ensuring that quality. When it gets to the actual bars or liquor stores, that's where it becomes the sales reps' a bit of responsibility. So we have a packaged on date on all of our products. And then about 6 months, we no longer consider the beer brewery fresh. So we'll actually buy that beer back and replace it and have the customer replace it with fresh product.
Right.
That's more on the liquor store side. In the on-premise or bar side, we have third-party companies like Beerworks or Everclear, BBS, that go in and service the draft lines. So that's to be done monthly. We pay for that service because we take great pride in our beer, and I think quality and freshness is so important. So if the bar owner is going to take the chance to bring you in, we're going to do everything we can to make sure that beer is pouring properly and pouring fresh. There'd be nothing worse than having someone try your product for the first time and it be an old stinky beer line or something like that. And the chance of getting that customer back are pretty slim to none at that point. So our reps are tasked with going in, doing cooler inspections, making sure the lines look good, they're pouring well, they've been cleaned regular. So that's where our quality control starts, and the brewery side kind of stops. But yeah, it is a very important part of the craft beer world is it is a shorter shelf life and it is a food product. You definitely need to maintain it and stay on top of it.
I know Calgary has seen a huge boom in brewing industry. Do you think you kind of led that as Wild Rose and kind of, I know you're kind of starting to collaborate with other breweries to make brews and things. Do you think being an active part of that scene is really helping you develop and grow as a brewery, even beyond what you are now?
Yeah, again, I think it's that community engagement piece, staying really focused in that craft community. When that boom was kind of starting, we knew we'd been around for a while and we were kind of the big brother to a lot of them. So we had open arms, open door policy, come on in, talk to the brewers, check out our quality control lab, ask questions, whatever. So we were very much involved in trying to bring people in and help them along the way and get their breweries started. I think in doing that, you really create that craft community. I love going out with other brewers and other tap rooms and everybody's high-fiving and trying different beers and getting along. I think that's really been, part of the growth of the craft community, because the average consumer sees that and they're like, oh, I want to be part of that. That looks like a lot of fun. These guys all get along. And bar owners, when you get 4 or 5 or 6 different reps in at one time, all sharing each other's beer and having a great time, you're creating that experience, and that's kind of what beer should be, is enjoying it through an experience. So yeah, I think that's helped a lot with the growth, and I think that's what's enticed a lot of people to come into that craft community, is to be part of that. And the last couple of years in Alberta, that's been a great time to be a part of that.
No, it's cool. I was surprised, like, moving here relatively recently and seeing these big breweries like working with the smaller ones, and it's just, like you say, it just creates community, which just makes you look even better. So yeah, I had a question regarding the different types of brewing there are. So there's like the term craft brewing, there's micro brewing, there's macro brewing. Is there any way you can kind of quickly explain what the differences are?
Yeah, I guess to a point. It's easier to kind of explain, I guess, the macro side. So those are your real big breweries that are producing, hundreds and if not millions of hectoliters of beer a year. So that's more on that macro side. You've kind of got your big 3 really, like Labatt's, Molson Coors, or ABI, I guess, for Labatt's, Anheuser-Busch and Beverage Company. And then in Canada, Sleeman's would kind of be on that third, I guess, as far as the bigger ones go. So that's more on that macro scale. Craft and micro, and that all kind of got twisted around a little bit. So now I guess craft brewing is if you're not using any adjuncts, you're using all natural ingredients, you don't pasteurize, there's no additives in your beer. Really, I would deem that as craft beer. Okay. And then depending on how, some people would see it as, well, if it's made, as local as a postal code, then it's kind of that micro. So that's kind of the definitions of it. I think micro is always seen as under that 5,000 hectoliter mark. Sure. Craft was kind of the middle section, and then macro was kind of this big monster brewing company up top. Yeah. But now, yeah, I think craft is more about the ingredients and process that you do, and then micro is more of just your ton of little brew pubs or small tap rooms that aren't really commercially selling that much yet. That was kind of where I would put micro.
Okay, so you sit kind of merging on the macro level?
So Wild Rose would still, I would consider as a craft brewery, but our parent company would be with Sleeman, which would be more on the macro side. And that's just based on overall size and hectoliter production.
Just production amount, yeah. Okay, that makes more sense. With the involvement of Sleeman Brewery, how has that kind of changed the dynamic? Has it affected at all? Are they just kind of a silent kind of partner, or in terms of your marketing sales strategies, has much been done yet?
Yeah, and that's a really good question. You know, obviously it was a bit of a shock to a lot of people this year when we announced that Sleeman Breweries was interested in purchasing Wild Rose Brewery. There was kind of a few feelings that went through. One was some pride and some joy because we've been kind of noticed on an international scale and level for the quality and the beer that we make, and obviously the influence that we have in the community. And the other side was a bit of shock because it was like, oh, we're just this little Alberta craft brewery and now we're part of something bigger. But now honestly, it's been super collaborative, really positive moving forward. The focus has very much been on Wild Rose in Alberta. That's a company mandate now, as Wild Rose is kind of the priority brand. So for a lot of it right now, it's just, you know, increasing the size of our sales team, you know, finding some synergies throughout certain departments, and then where can we save some cost. So having that buying power has been a big one, especially in the economy that we have now. That gives us a lot more opportunity. We don't have to raise any of our costs on any of our products, which is great for our customers, which is great for the end consumer, because we can find those synergies right now. But yeah, I mean, it's been a really, really good transition so far. The support, the effort, the marketing strategy behind it has been great on both sides. It's been very collaborative and really engaging. So it's been nice to see, and you always worry that the big brewery will come in and sort of just wipe you out. But that's not at all the case right now. They're trying to increase the number of people that we have employed here in Alberta, and increase, you know, the amount of beer that we can produce, and even to the point of how we can get it to our customers. So with an increased delivery schedule, more trucks, all that kind of fun stuff too. So that's helped out a lot and will help out as we move forward into the future. It's still pretty new, or relatively new this year, but by 2020 or early 2020, we should be operating as kind of one company, but all for the betterment of Wild Rose Brewery here in Alberta.
Okay, so moving back to yourself, I wanted to talk a little bit about where you've been, but what kind of myths would you kind of debunk from your industry? Is this, you know, the sales and marketing? What are the things that you kind of get misrepresented?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, it's funny. You're a beer sales rep, or you're marketing for a beer company, or work for a beer company. So people, I think that the average perception of what you do is just show up, get together as a group, crack a few brews, have some laughs, high fives. Yeah. You know, watch a guy fill some kegs and call it a day, right? So nobody wants to hear the woes of a beer salesman. Yeah, I guess so. Some of the myths for that would just be that it's all fun and games. Obviously, it's not. There's a very big business aspect that has to go with it. Some professionalism that has to take place. So that's kind of one of the major ones. Make no mistake, I love what I do, and I have a great time doing it. But like anybody, I've got some days that aren't my favorites, and some days that are the best ever. So, yeah, I think a few of the myths is just how you're seen or you're perceived with the general public of what you actually do. And I love seeing all the little cartoons that go with it, what I actually do and what your mom thinks you do, or whatever it is. So. So that would be kind of the bigger one, probably, that it's just all fun and drinking beer. I think the other one too is just people think it's really easy to make beer. You know, just throw a little bit of this with a dash of that and wait a couple days and you're good to go. It is truly an art form and a science that goes behind it. You know, even as big as we are within Alberta, we're still very hands-on. Every recipe is handwritten out. Every time we brew a batch, it's written down. So it's still very hands-on, very engaging, but that's to ensure the quality and consistency that we're looking for in our beer. So it is, the guys that we have, we're lucky to have them, and they've worked very hard at perfecting their craft. And so it's not as easy as just throwing some grains into some water and calling it a day, as though I think people think it is. But
when you develop a product, is it very much, I know you mentioned the guys kind of get free roam, is it like you leave it to them to design new brews, or do you aim to create a certain type of beer because you're lacking in that kind of, you know, like a new stout or something? How do you kind of figure out what's the next product we're going to develop?
Yeah, and so that comes from a couple of different places. Definitely there are times where our brewers just get an idea and they want to make something fun and crazy, and they have all rights to do that, to try out a batch. At the end of the day, our brewers have veto if it's, and mostly Brian Smith, but if they've decided that the beer's not good or it's a style that they won't make, or if we have to add anything that's not natural, we won't make it. And they can say no to you right away. We've had some pretty crazy requests over the years for like Caesar beers and these lime, strawberry, whatever. It's those are never going to happen out of our brewery, and so they get vetoed out in that regard. But there's other times too where you meet with customers or general public, and they bring up an idea, or they were traveling somewhere and saw this style of beer. So then I take that back to the brewers and I'm like, hey, what about? And they start to play with it, or a customer really has a beer in mind that they really want to try and make that they think will work. And so I'll go to them too. So it comes from a couple of different avenues, but ultimately they're the ones that decide how it's going to look, the style it's going to look like. And then as far as missing anything in our portfolio, not really. Like, we've got a pretty good lineup right now. The only thing that would kind of change, I guess, on that would be just seasonality. There are times when they're like, we're going to make a super heavy imperial stout in July, and I'm like, no, you're not. I can't sell that right now. Let's wait till November. So that's about the only kind of stop to some of those brands. Outside of that, it's like, hey man, if you got a cool idea, let's try it. We've done everything from putting different crazy fruits like yuzu from Japan to different algae that'll actually turn the beer like a bluish green to, there's brewers that have edible sparkle in their beers. Like there's some really weird stuff out there. So if they want to try it out, go nuts. That's why we have that little pilot system, is just to try out something cool and crazy and see if it works.
So are there any of you that you've suggested that have kind of taken off? Do you put ideas forward that much, or is that not really what you?
I try to, but a lot of my stuff will come from traveling around with my wife. Thankfully, she's very supportive when we go places to check out breweries and tap rooms and drink all the beer that I want to drink. So there's times I'll come back from that and be like, what if we did something like this, but with this? They'll test batch it. Nothing's really come to fruition yet. We've done some trials on a few things, but the ones that have actually come out really have been customer driven.
Okay.
So like a great customer of ours, the Toad and Turtle, we do 2 house beers for them exclusively. Both those recipes kind of came from their direction. We did another one for Garo and Gun downtown, which is a yuzu saison. It was something that they really wanted to try out, being a Japanese fusion restaurant, and myself we have 2 Japanese brewers at Wild Rose. It was kind of a perfect fit. So yeah, a lot of the ideas I sit down and talk to them with come from my customers.
So in terms of your branding and the logo development and things like that, I noticed that the Wild Rose stuff is very, I don't know, it's quite adventurous, but also very classy in the way it has like a theme for each bottle. And what's the process behind that? Do you have an internal team that designs them, or is it the naming and all that sort of stuff?
We do. So Candace Potter is our creative lead for Wild Rose Brewery. So she has basically brand control over the look and feel of Wild Rose. She's been with us a couple years now. When we did our full kind of packaging revamp this year, that was all her design. So that everything was done in-house. She created the characters to go with the different brands. I mean, obviously we had a couple already. Melvin, which is on the Velvet Fog, has always been kind of our staple. So taking that and just sort of expanding it to all brands was her focus. And just to make it look, like you said, a little more streamlined, a little more classic, just stand out as basically one brand and look very seamless across it all. So having one character on a can wasn't quite enough. She wanted to really develop each of the individual characters and give them backstories, and that campaign all kind of played into like the hardworking Albertan and really just creating the different animals that can be found in and around Alberta as well. So she's done a very good job. She's extremely creative. Some of the naming on some of the brands kind of comes from a few different places within the company, but the overall look and feel and backstory is pretty well all her.
Wow, no, that's something that impresses me about Wild Rose. It's kind of unique in that way, I think. Look after her, I think.
Yeah, we always say that we take our beer very seriously, but we don't take ourselves too seriously. No. So there has to be a real professional kind of look and feel to everything we do. But but you got to have some fun doing it. So, and that's kind of the big focus for us as well.
So in terms of strategy moving forward, what have Wild Rose got planned, like for the foreseeable future? What's kind of next?
Next for us would be, just developing some more seasonals. We got some great stuff coming up for 2019. I guess January-ish, we're looking to do a vanilla milk stout as a seasonal, which would be great. And then, continue with our community engagement piece is always a big focus for us. So we're actually doing something with Local Laundry, another Calgary-based company here. So that'll be in February. We're looking to do a yuzu hibiscus sour with them. So, and then donating proceeds from that back to a local charity as well. So, the focus for us would just be to continue to get a little better, a little more creative, come up with some fun seasonals, and stay true to what Wild Rose is all about, and maintain our feel and engagement with the community.
And then kind of leading on from that, what do you see in terms of the Calgary brewing scene? Because I don't know, from an outside perspective, it seems like there's a lot of breweries. What do you think, how's it going to shape over the next few years? Because I know it's kind of come over, what was it, like 5-6 years, it's kind of boomed. And then now it's kind of, there's a lot. What do you think is going to...
Yeah, and that's a great question. There's been a massive boom since, 2012, 2013. Really in the last 3 years is when we've seen the biggest growth.
Yep.
I think in terms of like Calgary-based breweries, we've slowed down quite a bit. I think the market's pretty saturated at this point. It's great to see that everybody's really doing well. There may be a couple that just don't make it, or they change what they do or how they go to market, but I think we're going to start to see a little bit more in northern Alberta. They seem to be a little bit behind the Calgary market right now, but say up in Edmonton, they're really starting to open up. Not quite at the same rate that we did down here, but I think northern Alberta and some rural communities is where you're going to see a lot of the growth for those small tap rooms and breweries and keeping it going. So, which is great to see. It gets a lot of people involved in craft beer and drinking local and supporting local. But yeah, I think as far as Calgary goes, I think this is probably about as big as we can get for the amount of breweries that are here. I would say to people, like, I'm in beer and it's hard to keep up. I'm not sure how the average Joe does it, but it's a commitment to get around and see all these great tap rooms and drink all that wonderful beer that's here. So, but yeah, I think everybody just drives each other to get better, right? You're going to see some really fun beers come out. The quality is going to be excellent. The styles are going to be very true but unique in their own right, and I'm excited to see what craft beer will do here in the next couple of years in Calgary.
I think one that I wanted to end on was really who have been kind of the most influential people that you've kind of taken inspiration from as you've developed through your career. Maybe not in the brewing side, but more like on the business marketing side. Have you had anyone that you've kind of always constantly been watching or keeping a track of and been inspired to get into the field? Because it's a field that you seem to be liking, loving, and been in for a while. So.
Yeah, I guess there's a few people I've worked with over the years that I keep in touch with. Is arguably not as much contact as I would like some of the time nowadays. But when I started at Big Rock, Alistair Smart was the sales beer guy, and I knew that before I started at Big Rock. And then when I did start, he was my kind of training rep, I guess. I took over his territory, which was a crazy pair of shoes to fill because he's so good at what he did and his customers loved him so much. So I felt like I was always starting from way back, but he was a huge part of, I think, my success at Big Rock and still at Wild Rose Brewery and now with Sleeman. Just his style, his go-to-market approach, his relationship building, that was a huge win for me to get a guy like that in my corner right off the bat. Bill McKenzie, who was president at Big Rock, obviously he's president here. I followed him over. Yeah. Has always kind of been a wonderful mentor to me, both professionally and personally. So he's always been a guy that's really helped me develop on my business savvy, my presentation skills, and just overall kind of beer knowledge and go-to-market strategies. So he's been a great guy to be with, and I've had the pleasure of working with him for really over 12 years when we go back to even the OJ's days. And then guys like Derek Doak with the Franworks group of companies. He was kind of my first sort of mentor when I was with that group, and he was a guy I always aspired to learn more about and kind of follow in his footsteps and understand what his business plans were and why he made certain decisions. And
And I mean, to top that all off, he was just a really great guy to hang out and have a beer with. So that worked well. But those are some of the big three for sure that I've really enjoyed working with and getting to know over the years.
And do you think it's helped you by having that kind of person throughout your career to kind of look up to, aspire to? I think that's been an important part of your development.
Yeah, it's been a huge part for me. You know, I still try and get lunch with Alistair once in a while just to catch up, see how things are going, and it's nice. It kind of refreshes some of my, you know, relationship skills and my selling techniques, and it's good just to have a laugh. And yeah, with Bill, it's always been, you know, when I'm having hard days or I'm frustrated or I can't seem to figure out what's going on, or I'm, you know, having a hard time handling a certain rejection from customers or whatever it is, or even is down to coaching my team. He's always got time for me. He always stops what he's doing. He'll answer the phone. So he's been great to have in my corner for that. And then even guys like Derek, as busy as he is, it's always nice to catch up with him and really just kind of share what I'm doing, share what I think I'm going to do or where I'm going to go. And I always welcome his input, his feedback. So it's, yeah, they've been really important in my career for sure.
Yeah, that's been really insightful speaking to you about those different aspects of your life and your career, really. So where can people connect with you online? Is like LinkedIn the best place to kind of connect with you?
Yeah, I've got LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter.
Yep.
If you go to the Wild Rose website, there's a link to my email on there as well. Sure. So any of the three works. Yeah, I'm on all platforms.
Great.
Try and stay connected to the people as much as I can. So, yeah.
That's cool. Well, yeah, thanks for your time, and thanks for tuning into the podcast, and we will see you next time.
Thanks so much.